Adding to the Flock by Rhea_Wakayami on AO3. Episode 5. Chapter 5. Izuku puts the pressing issue of the League aside for the moment as he focuses on his current task. Until the exam is stopped, he has to keep going on like everything is fine. He sticks close to Hitoshi as they maneuver through the ruined exam area. Shit, this is a lot, Hitoshi murmurs, and Izuku nods. As they take a moment to orientate themselves and figure out what to do first, Izuku picks up someone calling for help nearby. Come on, I hear someone over here. He calls, and Hitoshi follows, Uraraka keeping pace. They find an elderly man with his leg pinned and bleeding from a supposed head wound. Hello, it's going to be okay. Izuku tries to reassure the panicking man. It hurts. He groans. I know, but we're going to get you out of here. Can you tell me your name? Izuku asks, conversationally, as Hitoshi and Uraraka start to remove some of the rubble around him. Kendo, he says, and Izuku smiles. It's nice to meet you, Kendo. How is your head? Does it hurt really bad? How many fingers am I holding up? Izuku holds up 2. Yeah, he admits. 3. He gets out. Hitoshi taps his shoulder, and Izuku nods. We're gonna get your leg free, but you still need to hold still. Kando-san, it might hurt as we remove the pressure, so if you'd like to grip my hand. Izuku offers, and he takes it. Izuku shuffles to the side, a little, to give Uraraka access to the slab of concrete, pinning his leg, and she touches it lightly to activate her quirk. It slightly floats up, and she directs it away from the man. All right, Kando-san, we're going to help you away from here and to a temporary medical station where someone will check you over for other injuries. Do you think you'll be okay standing up, or should we carry you? Izuku asks. I think I could stand, Kendo says, and Izuku nods. He and Hitoshi put a shoulder under his arm and gently haul him up, the man keeping weight off his leg. Uraraka sees Yaoyorozu and heads over to help her, while he and Hitoshi continue to carry Kendo out of the ruined area towards where some of the other people have already set up a medical area. This is Kando-san. He has a concussion and a leg injury. There are no other visible injuries, but I would check to make sure nothing else was hurt in the collapse. Izuku explained to another examinee taker, and she nods, helping Kendo to a spot to be looked over. Izuku glances around, worriedly, expecting to see another warp portal open to let villains in. But nothing has happened so far. Shaking himself, he and Hitoshi go back to find more people. Minutes into the exam, and Hitoshi has already helped a few people now. He and Izuku working with the other students from other schools to get people to safety. He can already figure out what the exam is simulating with this attack. Rescue work is something all heroes learn how to do, even if they don't specialize in it. You never know when you'll need it to help out in an emergency, and knowing how to do it correctly is important. Still, it's hard to remember all the things they covered in class and implement them when he's worried about Izuku, the League, and wondering when his dad is going to get the exam stopped. He keeps glancing at people, wondering if they're the shape changer, before dismissing it, since it's no use wondering. Somewhere between being berated by a small child for his performance and calming him down, and getting said child to the medical area, Hitoshi loses sight of Izuku. Hanging off his victim, he glances around, looking for his boyfriend, as a bit of panic starts to well up. He needs Izuku in his sight. Every time they got separated, something happens to him, and Hitoshi is not letting that happen again. He spots Yaoyorozu as he finished dropping off one of her victims, and he jogs over to her. Have you seen Izuku? He asks quietly. She frowns, thinking back. I think I saw him heading that way to help some other students, she said softly. Thanks, Hitoshi said with a nod, and starts to jog that way. He gets part way into the ruined city section, with an explosion behind him, sounds out. His heart rate spikes, thinking the worst, and that the League had arrived. Whirling around, Hitoshi goes to sprint back the way he came, when he hears someone call out for help. It makes him pause, glance around to see where the sound came from. They're still in an exam. There has been no announcement yet for it being stopped. If that was a league, he's not sure how much he'd be used compared to the heavy hitters that were here as well. Does he go fight the villains in hopes of not being in the way, or does he keep getting people out and trust the other students to take care of the threat? Another call of help comes again, and Hitoshi silently curses his own logical mind as he turns away from the sound of fighting and rushes towards where the cry came from. Izuku better be okay. He's just going to tie him up and never let him leave his dorm room if he gets kidnapped or seriously hurt again. Izuku's just bringing in another person when the side of the stadium explodes outwards. For a moment, his breathing stops, as he expects to see the League come pouring through the dust and rubble to attack the students in the area. When instead, he sees a bunch of people in similar uniforms, and somewhat scary vision of Gang Orca. Relief pours through him. It's just another part of the exam. And then he realizes what they're simulating, and rushes with a few other students to head the rushing villains off, as other students start to evacuate the civilians. Pulling out a staff, he knocks down a few villains as they rush for a group of 3, and keeps going. The real threat isn't the smaller ones. The others can handle them. The threat is Gain Orca and his own ability to paralyze people. He's heard his sonic abilities before, studied them to make his own move. He's not sure of the hero's range, but Izuku theorizes that he is one of the few that could possibly withstand the attack, at least long enough to keep him back. He notices Todoroki rushing up at the same time as the wind user they met before the exam. He can only watch as their attacks cancel each other out, and the two nearly fall to blows before Gain Orca hits them with his sonic blast and leaves them a useless lump on the ground, unable to move. Tightening his grip on his staff, Izuku rushes in, aiming low at Gain Orca's legs. "Nice try, little one, but you'll have to do better than that." The hero growls out, and Izuku sees the moment he goes to unleash his sonic attack, and he uses his own, centering it on himself outwards. The two frequencies hit and cancel each other out, though Izuku's knees go a bit weak from that bit that he goes through as he rapidly tries to match his frequency. His ears ringing slightly as Izuku grips up on Gang Orca. The hero, actually surprised by him still standing, and rushes in to land a solid hit across his chest before the hero can react. Stumbling back, Gain Orca manages to catch himself in time to right his stance before an interesting gleam crosses his face, and he goes into attack. Izuku manages to hold his ground for a few seconds before a solid hit to his stomach sends him flying back to a skidding stop. He looks to his right as he rises and coughs, seeing Todoroki on the ground, still struggling to move. "Todoroki-kun, can you use your quirk?" he asks, projecting his voice. "Yeah, but I can't control it," he grits out in frustration. He looks across the way where the wind user is at. "Do you think he'll help?" he asks him. "Doubt it. He hates me for some reason," Todoroki grits out. Frowning, Izuku projects his voice, keeping an eye on a Gang Orca as he starts to approach. Yarushi-san, was it? I'm gonna need your help to keep Gang Orca at bay. I need you and Todoroki-kun too." Izuku sends over. "I'm not working with him," the larger chain growls out. Izuku's frown hard and snaps out. "I wasn't asking what you will do. If you want to be a hero, put aside your stupid grudge and actually help me. Your hurt feelings will only get you disqualified." Izuku snaps out, rolling under an attack from the hero as he finally closes the distance. When there's silence, Izuku continues, keeping a healthy distance between him and the hero. Look, he says, without looking at either team. Todoroki-kun can provide the heat, but he doesn't have the control you do. We need to trap Gain Orca, and heat, as an aquarium creature, is his enemy. When I give the signal, I need you to help surround him in a wall of fire. Yarosha doesn't say anything, but Todoroki agrees easily, and Izuku rushes back in, ducking under another attack. Izuku draws his gaze until the hero's back is to the two teens, before he lets an attack hit that sends him skittling away. Now! He projects to the two, and Todoroki's fire side lights up as wind suddenly picks up. It's amazing to watch. The two elements feed off of each other as a literal fire tornado springs up around Gain Orca, keeping big enough to not actually touch the hero, but still keeping him contained. Clutching his aching side, Izuku watches, waiting, while bracing for something to happen. With a blast of a sonic wave, the fiery tornado comes apart, the attack disrupted, and Izuku rushes in. He blocks another attempt at being paralyzed, thankfully better prepared to match the frequency, and strikes his staff as he notices the other arriving to help and hold back the attack. During another attack, Izuku goes to strike again, when a loud buzzer goes off, and the commission announces the end of the exam. Blinking in shock, Izuku doesn't move for a second before relief sweeps through him, and he sags. Gain Orca huffs in amusement. So, you're the one I've heard about, he murmurs from a few feet away, and Izuku blinks. Yamada likes to talk about his favorite student. Gain Orca comments. Izuku feels a flush spread on his face. Oh, he murmurs, pleased that Yamada considers him his favorite. It's really nice to meet you, Gain Orca-san. I've always been a big fan of yours. Hearing your attacks really helped me refine my own. He added, glad I could help you. You did good. And to cancel mine out like that? That's quick thinking. He says, with a heavy shoulder pat. If you ever want an internship with me, I'll be more than happy. He adds, oh, thank you, sir. Izuku says with a bow. I should probably go and help the others. He adds, and Gain Orca nods, waving him off. Izuku rushes over to Todoroki, who is finally recovering from the paralysis. Are you okay, Todoroki-kun? He asks softly, helping him stand on his unsteady feet. Yeah, he murmurs. That was stupid, wasn't it? He asks, glancing at where the other student were helping Yaruzu up. Probably, Izuku admits with a wince. Why were you two so against each other? He asks. He kept comparing me to Endeavor, saying we're the same. Todoroki explains. He's right. I let my anger get the better of me. Hey, everyone has something that sets them off. Triggers are normal, and you're not like Endeavor. He would have never been willing to work with someone like Yarosha after what he said. You're allowed to make mistakes. Izuku reminds him. Todoroki frowns and nods. I guess. He admits. And then they both look up at someone shouting Izuku's name to see Hitoshi rushing up. Hitoshi comes to a quick stop and looks them both over. Good, you didn't get kidnapped, he says with a hint of relief. That was one time, Izuku huffs out. You're a trouble magnet, Hitoshi points out. You've been attacked by a serial killer and held hostage by a crazy villain too. It's possible. Toshi. Izuku grumbles with a flush, and Todoroki actually laughs a little. Come on, 1A is gathering in the waiting room, Hitoshi says, offering Todoroki his shoulder as well to help the teen stay on still wobbly feet. The bus ride back to campus is quiet. After the high of learning most of them got their license, except for Todoroki and Bakugo, they all felt like the day hit them hard. Hitoshi can see that most of the class is asleep, or decompressing from the stress of the exam. Izuku is passed out next to him, with his head leaning on Hitoshi's shoulder as he naps. It had been a relief to see him mostly unharmed, and there, when he had gone looking for him, when he'd realized it wasn't the League attacking, he felt such a sense of relief it had shaken him. What are their lives that they have to worry about being attacked by villains as first years? When they had finally gotten to his dad, the man had been livid. He thought he hidden it. When Hitoshi had asked quietly what had happened, he shook his head and said, "Later." It's obvious he got Izuku's message, and the man handing off the drone to him after when he arrived to the waiting room. It had taken nearly an hour for their scores to be tallied before they learned who passed, as well as getting their license printed. Hitoshi wanted to pull his hair out again, to look at it to make sure he was not dreaming. But he'd have to move, and that might wake Izuku, so he'll just have to wait. Todoroki shifts next to him, and Hitoshi looks over to see him grimace. No doubt, the headache from Gainorka's sonic attack is hurting him. The medics at the exam had simply handed him some painkillers, saying there wasn't anything they could do to relieve the pain. Still hurting? He asked softly. It's fine. Todoroki murmurs. You look like you're one loud noise away from hitting someone. Hitoshi says softly, and Todoroki grimaces again. Here. Hitoshi carefully digs in his pocket and pulls out his hearing enhancers. They have a noise-canceling feature. Just push the button 3 times on each. Todoroki actually looks surprised at his offer, and gringily accepts the offered support device. Thanks, he murmurs. My quirk gives me migraines sometimes, so I had May add that so I didn't have to switch out. He explains. Nodding, Hitoshi puts one in and presses the button 3 times, and blinks at the quiet in his ear. Take a nap, Todoroki-kun. You look like you need one. Hitoshi points out, and he nods, putting the other in and activating the sound-canceling feature. Leaning back, he shuts his eyes, and for all intents and purposes, goes to sleep. About 20 minutes later, Hitoshi feels something land on his other shoulder, and looks to see Todoroki had slid sideways to him, still asleep. Huffing at being trapped, Hitoshi manages to wiggle his phone out without waking up either teen, and spends the rest of the trip watching cat videos on his phone, to wired himself to sleep. Izuku grins excitedly at the animated text from his mother and Yamada after he sent a photo of his new provisional license in their group chat. Hitoshi had done the same, and the explanations and proud comments had him flushing slightly. Tucking his phone away, Izuku heads down to the common area to get some dinner, starving after so much physical activity and quirk use. He finds Hitoshi curled up on one of those couches eating his own dinner. The common area is mostly full, with the rest of the class chatting excitedly. There are quite few in the kitchen, cooking food, and just hanging out. He can hear a few play-by-play stories of stuff that happened during the exam. Slipping into the kitchen, Izuku manages to grab some food for himself, and not get stuck into a conversation. He really just wants to unwind some more. They've got the first day of the second semester tomorrow, and he really needs to start preparing for school again. Hitoshi shifts slightly to allow Izuku to take his spot next to him, and for the most part, they eat in silence. People drift around the common room area, as groups form and break apart. As the evening gets later, some starts to head to bed early, exhausted still. He and Hitoshi are in a mostly clear spot in the common area, just watching something on Hitoshi's phone, when someone clears their throat. Izuku looks up and is surprised to see Katsuki standing nearby, glaring, but not really at Izuku. What? Hitoshi demands, annoyed at having to pause the video. Katsuki doesn't even look at Hitoshi. Instead, focuses on Izuku. Meet me outside after lights out, Deku. He growls out. What? Izuku asks in shock. No, Hitoshi says sharply, and Katsuki actually looks taken aback at Hitoshi's words. You don't get to demand anything here, Bakugo. You want him to meet you somewhere, you ask, and you use his name. Not that fucking name you call him. And you give a good-ass reason why he should meet you outside after curfew. Hitoshi adds, "This doesn't have anything to do with you." Katsuki growls, "I don't care. You're asking him to break curfew after we just got our provisional license, just because it's you. So there's better be a goddamn good reason, or he's not going." Hitoshi snaps. "Toshi," Izuku murmurs, laying a hand on Hitoshi's arm, and Hitoshi looks at him. "It's okay," Izuku says softly, eyeing Katsuki's stiff posture. "I'll meet you after curfew," Izuku says simply. "Not alone, you aren't," Hitoshi says quickly. "This isn't about you." Katsuki growls again. "And I don't care. You've already proven you can't be trusted alone with him, and not hurt him." Hitoshi shoots out, and Katsuki grimaced a little, lips thinning, as the bard lands. "Like hell, I'm letting him anywhere near you." "I can take care of myself, Toshi," Izuku reminds him. "It's not you I'm worried about," Hitoshi remarks, and Izuku just sighs and nods in agreement. There's no use in trying to change his boyfriend's mind. Katsuki huffs, but nods, and stalks away before anything else can be said. "He's not gonna hurt me, Toshi," Izuku remarked softly, thoughtfully. He's seen Katsuki in a lot of moods, and this didn't scream physical. "There's more than one way to hurt someone without it being physical," Hitoshi pointed out, and Izuku sighs, softly, in understanding. "He's hurt you too many times for me to suddenly trust him not to revert back to his old ways," Hitoshi adds. "Okay," Izuku says, with a sad smile. "Thank you for looking after me," he adds shyly. "Always, Izu," Hitoshi says back, with a soft smile. It's 10 minutes before curfew, when Izuku creeps out of his dorm. Aizawa-sensei should have been heading for the teacher's dorm by now. Hopefully. So they should be in the clear. Hitoshi's door opens, before he could tap softly on it, and Hitoshi slips out beside him, taking the stairs down. They slip outside. It takes a moment to see Katsuki standing not too far away from the shadow of a building. He doesn't say a word, merely jerks his head towards the path around from the dorm and starts to walk. Izuku trails behind him, silently. Hitoshi, a slightly antagonistic shadow, next to him, glaring at the back of Katsuki's head. It takes a moment to realize where they're heading, as training ground Beta comes into view. Hitoshi hums disapprovingly beside him. Not like Katsuki had taken them so far from the dorms, but Izuku just lays a hand on his arm. Katsuki stops, and they both do as well. The blonde paces for a few moments, growling under his breath, a few words muddled, before he abruptly stops and turns towards them, crossing his arms over his chest, defensively. Katsuki grits out. "Dog face tells me I need to start making amends towards those I've hurt before, so I'm sorry." Izuku stares in shock because, well, he wasn't expecting this. Hitoshi lets out a low curse. "You've got to be," he starts to say, before Izuku grabs his arm and stops him. "Why?" he asks quietly. "What?" Katsuki murmurs, confused by Izuku's question. "Why are you apologizing?" Izuku asks. "Because I'm supposed to, according to Dogface." He huffs out, angrily. "So, someone told you that you need to apologize, so you did," Izuku says, softly, a soft sigh escaping despite how he tries to hide it. "Is that all you wanted to talk about?" Izuku asks, a little louder. "Eh?" Katsuki growls out. "Aren't you supposed to say something back?" "You were told to apologize, and you did. No one said I had to accept it, Kachan." Izuku explains evenly. falling back onto the blonde's old nickname. I won't accept it. Not until you mean it. Not until you aren't doing what you're told and come to actually apologize. Izuku says, with a firmer tone to his voice. Are you fucking kidding me? He snaps out, small pops going off in his palm, as Izuku can't help the instinctual reaction to the sound, flinching back. Katsuki seems to get a hold of himself, mostly, taking a deep breath before a growl. He storms off in a huff. Quiet settles over the two of them. You okay? Hitoshi asks, slipping his hands into Izuku's. I always hoped he'd apologize, and maybe we could be friends again. You know? Izuku says softly, voice a little thick, with held back tears. He still doesn't think he did anything wrong. He points out. It's a work in progress. Hitoshi says, diplomatically. Maybe one day he'll realize. He tries. Maybe. Izuku husses out. Can we go back now? He asks softly, looking up at Hitoshi. Yeah. Hitoshi agrees, and starts to lead the way back, throwing an arm over Izuku's shoulder to keep him close. Izuku's not really surprised when they round a stand of trees to see Aizawa-sensei standing near the path, waiting for them. Hey, Dad, Hitoshi says, with a wan smile. Are we in trouble? He asks softly. Aizawa eyes the two of them, lingering on Izuku, who's still holding back tears, and shakes his head. Not this time, he says with a sigh. Come with me. He orders, and they follow him on a different path that soon opens up to the teacher's dorm. Izuku is quiet as they take the elevator up a few floors and end up in front of Yamada and Aizawa's new apartment on campus. He's only been here a few times since they've started living on campus. Aizawa opens the door and motions them in. Oh, I see we have visitors, Yamada says, eyes taking in everything easily, and smiles softly at Izuku. Hitoshi, why don't you get Izuku settled in the guest room? He says softly, and Hitoshi nods, leading Izuku into the room. I'm sorry, Izuku whispers, wiping at his eyes as tears finally start to come down, and sniffles softly. Don't be, Hitoshi whispers. You two have a lot of history together, good and bad. You're allowed to feel this way when dealing with the scars and trauma of your history. Hitoshi reminds him. Try to get some sleep, okay? He asks. Izuku smiles, wanly. I'll try, he says, and Hitoshi presses a kiss on his forehead. The taller teen slips out of the guest room, after shuffling off the overhead light, and Izuku is left to his own thoughts in the darkness of the room. Eventually, he finds pitiful sleep, though there are more tears shed before that happens. Hitoshi eyes Izuku the next morning as they eat breakfast before class. They were woken up early by Dad to get back to the dorms so they could get ready for class. He told them what happened the night before, but there wasn't much they could do. Pops did advise that if Izuku felt he needed to talk to someone professionally, the Hound Dog was always available to talk to. Hitoshi promised to let his boyfriend know if he felt like the smaller teen needed someone to talk to professionally. Izuku, for his part, looked wanged and tired. He got some shadow under his eyes, and he's not really talking to anyone, just nodding or shaking his head when he needed to answer a question. It's been a while since Izuku had a non-verbal day. They've been more common when he first met the teen at the start of middle school. Izuku finishes his breakfast and stands to go clean the dishes. Hey, Hitoshi whispers, grabbing his arm to stop him momentarily. I'll meet you down here, and we'll walk to class, all right? He asks. Izuku nods and continues towards the sink. Sighing, Hitoshi starts to head towards the stairs, and isn't surprised to see Hitoshi watching the smaller teen. Did something happen? He asked quietly. Sort of. Hitoshi hedges. Some old stuff was brought up last night, and it's messing with him. He decides on not mentioning Bakugo at all. Heterochromic eyes. Flick over to where Bakugo. He decides on not mentioning Bakugo at all. Heterochromatic eyes. Flick over to where Bakugo is silently glaring at Izuku. So he's, thankfully, keeping this distance. Yeah, that stuff. Do you want me to do anything? Todoroki asks, completely serious. And Hitoshi snorts softly. I don't think Izuku would like you getting into trouble for him, but I'll let you know if that changes. Hitoshi says with a sigh, glancing back at Izuku. Just don't be surprised if he doesn't talk today. All right. Todoroki murmurs and follows Hitoshi towards the stairs up to their rooms to get ready for class. Oh my god. Okay. All right. We're ending on a cliffhanger. It's not a big cliffhanger. I thought it was going to be worse, but still ending on a cliffhanger because we don't know what's going to happen next. We don't know what happens. But it's not a big cliffhanger where it's like, ugh, no. It's one of those where it's like, okay, I could accept this as an open ending. You know, I could accept this as an open ending if it doesn't get, what's it called? Updated. There you go. I can't read my glasses. As I mentioned before, last time it was updated was the 5th of... The 5th? What's the 5th? Hold up. I gotta count. Hold up. I gotta count the months. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. May. Okay. The 5th is May. Surprise! The 5th is May. So, the 5th, May... Where the fuck did it go? May 28th, 2003. So, in about a month? No, 2 months. In about 2 months, it's about to be a year since this has last been updated. Hopefully this will get updated a bit more. Who knows? Only the AO3 gods know now. I just want to say this has been a really, really nice fanfic. I really, really enjoy it. It's really sweet. It's really nice. I find this interesting that Izuku doesn't forgive him. It's a very interesting take since Izuku almost always forgives him whether he means it or not. Like, I've seen fanfics where Izuku's like, I've forgiven you, even if you haven't said I'm sorry. So it's a very interesting take. I love this take. I love Izuku's initiative take. Yeah. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.